This is American Republic. In case you forgot what class you were in, thank you, students, for participating in these online classes. I know this is a difficult time for you to fully understand exactly the ramifications, the effects that are taking place right now. I just pray that you guys will continue to be faithful, stay healthy, be able to get the work done that you'll be assigned, and be able to understand the material that we cover. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can email my school email address, or you can Skype. Just make sure that you specifically understand and know what you are asking, also that you have your parents' permission to do so. Remember, we've already covered Roman numeral 1 in your notes. We're in chapter 20, and if you have your handout notes, that'll help you as we go through this. I'm trying to cover the entire 45-minute lesson in a 15-minute time span. Remember, you can pause me, rewind me if you need to, so that you shouldn't have any problems. Also, if you are missing any work for me, it is your responsibility to get it turned in. I won't be telling you online by name who's missing work. Thankfully for some of you. Some of you guys still have American journals you need to get turned in. They do count for grades still. And you guys need to make sure that you get them taken care of. So, with all that said and done, let's begin with Roman numeral 2, the European War's effects on America. Although the U.S. was not participating in the war, remember this is World War I, it was not isolated from it either. The war affected transportation, trade, diplomatic relations with Europe. The U.S. was concerned with all of these issues. Sorry about that. Letter A, reasons for American interest. Questions asked real quickly. Who was president this time? Some of you guys remember Woodrow Wilson. The U.S. desired to remain neutral, but it would be difficult to do so. One reason why America was interested in this war was many Americans' sentiment favored the Allied cause. While 11 million Americans did have ties to Germany, many Americans were of British descent. America's form of government, legal system, and language was influenced by Britain. Americans also supported France because it was France who had helped in the American Revolution. Americans were also upset by the German invasion of neutral Belgium. Number 2, American businessmen sold goods and lent money more to the Allies than the Central Powers. As we all understand, we've all heard this concept that money does control opinion. While the U.S. did trade with both sides, most trade occurred with Britain. Americans were more sympathetic to Allied interests just to protect American investments. At first, Britain and France paid cash for needed goods, but as the war continued, they began asking for loans. The U.S. loaned more than $300 million to France and over $1 billion to Britain. Germany complained that these loans violated neutrality rights because American-made bullets were killing Germans. The U.S. tended to ignore the German complaints. Number 3, America was influenced by Allied propaganda. Britain and France controlled the transatlantic cables that brought the news to American newspapers. The Americans only heard the Allied side of the story. Number 4, the real-life issues of German atrocities during the war. Germany had invaded neutral Belgium. Germany also had 5,000 Belgian civilians executed simply for resisting the German occupation. The British, the Allies, were quick to inform America whenever German actions were horrific, including some made-up stories as well. Remember, we got to understand, this is World War I, not World War II. World War II, it's going to be a very clear good versus evil war taking place. Adolf Hitler, the Nazis, the racism, genocide, Holocaust, all that. That makes it very clear that, yes, Germany was the bad guy in World War II. World War I is a little more muddled. It's a little more political than moralistic. Yes, we have our reasons why we would support the Allies, but there were also some reasons why people would support the Germans. And remember, World War I, we didn't have a previous World War to get an opinion on either. So the fact of the matter is, while I sympathize a little bit with the German side of this war and us tending to favor the Allies, I do obviously support the Allied cause in this war. Germany was an autocracy, a country ruled by a ruler, while countries like Britain and France were democracies, as the U.S. was. So I'm glad we obviously favored the Allied cause, but you got to understand, it wasn't so clear-cut back during this time period. All right, moving on. Letter B, violations of America's neutrality rights. Fact of the matter is, both sides violated America's neutrality on the seas. Because the U.S. was neutral, it traded with both sides during the war. Both sides were dependent on trade, but knew that the best way to weaken the enemy was to cut off their trade. The British often stopped U.S. ships and seized cargoes heading for Europe. The British had blockaded German ports, but as the war continued, some ships went into neutral countries like Denmark, the Netherlands, or Sweden. From there, the goods were sent to Germany. The British would stop, search, and sometimes seize the cargo of an American ship heading to these neutral ports. Such actions angered Americans because they violated the rights of a neutral nation. Germany used unrestricted submarine warfare, firing on any ship in a war zone around Britain. Of course, you guys understand how submarine warfare takes place. Submarines are underwater. Their best strategy is to attack unaware and to sink a ship before even being detected. Well, the Germans began using unrestricted submarine warfare. That meant they didn't only attack military ships belonging to the Allies, they would also attack merchant ships, civilian ships, neutral ships. Any ship that they considered a threat to their war effort were fair game in the ocean. This was done to prevent any goods from reaching Britain. Attacking neutral ships without warning was a violation of international law. The U.S. complained about Germany's actions as inhumane. Germany responded that it could not warn ships about an attack because then the U-boat would be vulnerable. Germany even put ads in American newspapers warning them not to travel on British ships. The warnings were generally ignored. Eventually, all of this came to a head in 1915 when a German U-boat sank the British ship Lusitania, which included American passengers. The action obviously angered Americans. 1,198 people died. About 128 of them were Americans. The U.S. demanded an apology and promised to cease fire unrestricted submarine warfare. Germany cooperated for a while. Letter C. Growing American fears. As the war progressed, the German offensive had slowed down. They felt their only solution was to cut Britain's supply lines. So, in 1917, Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare. Remember, they had taken a break after Lusitania. They didn't want America getting angered at them, so they paused. But as the war progressed, things became more desperate for Germany. They concluded this was their only option if they wanted to win the war. The U.S. immediately responded by breaking diplomatic relations with Germany. Number 2, the Allies uncovered what became known as the Zimmerman Telegram. Zimmerman Telegram promised Mexico a part of the U.S. if the U.S. joined the war and Mexico attacked. The land, in case you were wondering, included the southwest part of the U.S., Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, a territory that had belonged to Mexico before the Mexican War. Arthur Zimmerman, the German foreign minister, sent it to Mexico as an offer, while British intelligence intercepted the telegram and notified the U.S. When the telegram was released to the public, Americans were obviously outraged. German submarines sank more American ships as well, of course, sinking American public opinion with it. And on April 6th, 1917, on a very testable date, the U.S. declared war on Germany, joining the war. Well, that's all we're going to talk about for today. As promised, kept it under 15 minutes. Please tune in for the next video, which will be talking about the U.S. war, or the U.S. response to joining the war. Have a good day. Be good. Do good.